This episode of Fuel for the Soul is powered by ASICS. Head over to asics.com and sign up for a one ASICS account. It's completely free, and when you sign up, you will receive 10% off your first purchase. You'll also gain access to exclusive colorways on asics.com, free standard shipping, special birthday month discounts, and more.
Hi, this is Thomas with Believe in the Run.
This is Megan with Believe in the Run.
And this is Megan with Featherstone Nutrition.
AKA the Feather Machine.
And you're listening to Fuel for the Soul, the podcast where we chat all things nutrition and hydration and how it affects performance.
We need a sound effect for feathers. It'd be like, like when feathers drop from the screen.
Okay, yeah, you work on that.
All right, I'm getting it.
Yeah, so today we are back to answer a bunch of listener questions. We've got some good ones today. But before we do, let's chat about our sponsor.
Well, before we get to that, I have a quick question for you guys.
We just need to get the sponsor out.
Yeah, but you've been doing a lot of stuff. You've been doing the Move Her Mind tour, and you've been answering the questions here on the Fuel for the Soul podcast. Is there one that's more fun than the other? Because I would think that being out there live audience is got to be a lot of fun.
I don't think one's more fun. I just think they're very different. It's a different atmosphere. They're different topics. I like them both.
I wish people could sometimes come in and hear our pre-recording
No, I'm very happy that no one gets to hear that, actually.
You guys are missing half the show.
Yeah.
That's right. Anyhow.
I was just going to say, I think that the live and in person are just really different. But my favorite part is when we're talking to these crowds, I just like to look in the crowd and look at people's faces and see what kind of expression they have. And so if anybody comes to a live one, I'm the creepy one who's looking at everybody while they're out there in the audience.
I'm going to make a request to people who come to your live events. I want them to start throwing carrots and peas at the stage.
I don't know about that.
Or feathers, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe
feathers, carrots, and peas.
I'm kidding.
You guys should end it by pulling a lever and just peas and carrots fall on you.
So actually, the date that this podcast airs is going to be Tuesday, and it's kind of our last stop, essentially, at Red Coyote.
For this year.
Well, we're going to do something in Tokyo, and then we have a culmination event.
It's never ending.
But yeah. So if you're in Oklahoma City, come to Red Coyote tonight at 6:30 p.m.
And you said last time that audience, that crowd that came to the Red Coyote was one of your favorites of the last year's tour.
They were great, and they were huge, and that running store went over the top with goodies, and there were snow cones. And, yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So we'll see what
they
pull off this year, but I feel like it's going to be epic.
Yeah.
I think it's time to talk about salty carbs.
Yes. So our sponsor, Runway, launched a new product called Salty Carbs. Our bag is en route to us, so we haven't actually tested it yet, but I'm really pumped.
Secure the bag.
Megan, you tell us about them.
It is delicious. So
What?
What?
It's delicious?
Delicious. Yeah.
All right. That's a bold statement because most supplement stuff, I wouldn't call delicious.
Oh, I think it's delicious. Yeah. They have what's this one? Raspberry lemonade flavor. I don't want to screw it up. Yeah. And then they have a melon flavor. They're both very good. I think the raspberry lemonade is a little more pungent in flavor. I think the melon is slightly more mild, but it has 700 milligrams of sodium in it. So we've talked about the importance of increasing sodium if we are a heavy and or salty sweater. This heat and this humidity is unrelenting. This morning when I got back from my long run workout, Sloan was waiting for me on the stairs and she said, "Mom, I just needed to let you know it's almost 100% humidity today," because she likes to stalk the weather. And I was like, "Yes, I know this. I can feel this. We are all dripping out here." So if you are also dripping after your run, you probably need some salty carbs in your life because it does have more sodium. And what we're realizing is we probably all need more sodium while we're running and after we're running than we thought. So that'll take care of that. And then it also has 30 grams of carbs in it. So I don't think that we necessarily need to replace our gels or fuel with this. This is like a bonus on top, right? Most of us aren't taking quite enough grams of carbs per hour. So if we add something like this that gives us another 30 grams that we're drinking on top of our gels, perfect.
I believe they call that stacking.
stacking. That's it.
And doesn't that sound cooler? And Meg and I are totally spoiled. Both of us ran on the treadmill this morning because it was too hot and too humid outside. And we both had workouts, and we're like, we're not hitting these numbers if we're not inside. And I realized, like, you don't think about it, and you're going to be training in the winter, and sometimes you're going to be indoors. You're still sweating.
Oh, yeah.
Crap ton. I had to get off and get a towel because I was, like, drenched, and I was getting my sweat all over the machine and stuff, so I'll towel that off. But, yeah, you're losing sweat inside.
Mm-hmm. That's the lovely thing about being on a comeback journey with running, because it's like, it doesn't really matter what paces I hit. I'm just like going to try to push my body harder and see what happens. So.
And you're all happy that you're just out there.
Right. It's lovely.
All right, so if you guys want to try Runway's salty carbs, you can go to runway.life. That's RNWY.life, and use the code FEATHERS15 for 15% off your first purchase.
That's a feather sound effect.
Yeah, we don't need sound effects when Thomas is here. Okay, before we answer
Womp, womp,
all
womp.
of these questions, Megan, I dropped a link in our notes here because I bought this new protein shake from BJ's.
So tasty.
And it tastes too good to be true. So I'm wondering if it's not actually very good for us.
It's like a combination.
It's got 32 grams of protein. It's only 150 calories, and it's only 1 gram of sugar.
Yeah.
But it tastes like cotton candy in a can.
It says it's vanilla flavored, not cotton
Yeah,
candy.
vanilla cream.
But it's so sweet and stuff.
Does it taste like melted ice cream? Like melted vanilla?
Yeah.
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 Like, I put it over ice after my workout this morning because I was just drenched. I was like, I needed to go shower. And I was like, this is like a dessert.
And
beverage.
I had it I used it as a milkshake next to my hamburger.
For anyone listening, the link they sent is Slate high protein nutrition drink from BJ's. I actually have seen ads for this. No, I mean, I think this is legit. Like, I think it compares to the Fairlife 30 gram protein shakes, or I think I talked on here recently about the Nuri protein shakes that are at Costco, NURRI. They are the exact same way. They taste like melted vanilla milkshake. So, they don't have the carbs we need for recovery, but it's a great way to slam back that protein that we need post-exercise. And then, like you said, go hop in the shower, come back, and then eat your bagel and carbs and things like that. I've gotten in a habit of doing that. I actually just drank my last Nuri this morning, so I need to go buy more. Because I think it's easy peasy to have around, and it is legit. It really is the protein that you need. We just need to make sure we're getting, the fat and the carbs after.
All right. Very good. That's good news.
Because Meg's now you love those now. You're like a
Well, no, honestly, if I have time and I'm not totally soaking wet from sweat, I much prefer to have like a meal of food with eggs, bread, whatever, than chugging a protein shake. But at the end of the day, if I don't have time or it's convenient, it's just nice to know that it's there. All right. Our first question is from another Megan from NYC. She said, first, I love the pod. I used to feel sick and nauseous after every long run before I started listening. Now I feel like I have my fueling down to a science with your help. My question is, how much does tapering impact the immune system? And is there a way I can shift my nutrition during a taper to help boost my immune system? My last 2 marathons, I got sick exactly 2 weeks out from the race. Is this an unlucky coincidence given my taper is only 3 weeks and it seems wild for my body to respond this way after only a week of reduced mileage? Both times felt like a cold, but I slept so much, 18 hours straight at times. Whoa.
Wow.
And both times the symptoms lasted until race day. I am running a fall marathon this year, and 2 weeks out I will be traveling and attending a wedding. I'm already scared I'll get sick. Is there any way I should change my nutrition in preparation?
Okay, before we even get started, I gotta know,
18 hours
18 hours of sleep, that is amazing. Like, if that's not over the weekend, if that's like just whenever you feel like it, that's incredible that you have that kind of freedom. Like, I don't even know if I could sleep that long. Yeah, I'd want that.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's a curse because I need more sleep than I get. So I think it's actually a detriment but anyways, whatever. So yeah, I mean, that's awesome that Megan can sleep that much. But this is a really good question because this is something we hear about a lot because we know for some people when they start to taper, we have like an adjustment in our immune system when training volume is reduced, right? And usually it's when it's like a big adjustment in training volume, which, we've all talked on here that we don't taper crazy, crazy hard, right? And it's like 2 weeks and yes, we back off the volume and intensity, but it's not like completely like hard stop, right? So some of the research was showing when it's like a big drastic drop in intensity, we have a decrease in adrenaline, our body's stress response changes, and that decreases our immunity a little bit. So there certainly could be some sort of phenomenon that she's responding to from a specific taper piece. But my concern is like, hey, let's take a deeper look at what does impact our immunity, because if this has happened twice now in the taper, I'm wondering if there's other things going on from her immune system standpoint that maybe we should look into just to give her body a better fighting chance this time, since she is traveling for a wedding. It'll be around more people and traveling and all that kind of stuff. So some of the things that we think about that impact our immunity are our micronutrient status, inadequate nutrition, lack of sleep, stress. So those are kind of the 4 things that maybe we have some control over to try to help make sure that our immune system's a little stronger during that time. So I would recommend she get some blood work done and look at her vitamin D and her ferritin, because we know when we have decreased vitamin D levels, we have an increased risk of catching those upper respiratory infections, those URIs, and we have a decreased immunity in the background when that vitamin D is low. So if she has low vitamin D going into that taper, it could certainly be triggering some of this to happen. So a supplement would help that. And then same thing with ferritin. Low ferritin decreases our body's ability to fight those infections that are coming into our body. So if our ferritin's low or vitamin D is low, these are things we can change, we can fix to improve that immunity, and try to keep this from happening. And then of course, the other thing would be just inadequate energy intake, which we talk about a lot around here. Sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's not intentional. But if we're not eating enough and we're kind of in maybe a little bit of REDS, right, that relative energy deficiency, we know that our body's prioritizing energy other places. So it's not giving the energy to our immune system to keep it strong, right? So just making sure she's eating enough, making sure she's sleeping enough, and then trying to control for stressors would be the best recommendation.
So those, like, I guess it's just a bunch of vitamin C, but those like packs of pills or whatever that say that they boost your immune system, are those legit or not so much?
Probably not. So we know if we're deficient in zinc or we're deficient in vitamin C, supplementing will increase our immune system. But if we already have adequate zinc and vitamin C in our body, taking more is actually not going to do anything to further help us. So
Mentally it will, though.
Yeah. The placebo effect is very strong. And
because I tell you what, we have an immune C thing around the house. And anytime I'm not feeling good, just do that real quick and I feel a lot better. Yeah.
I remember I started to get sick before Berlin, and I was taking everything I could get my hands on because I was like, anything that might work, I'm going to do. So
I picture them as like little police officers going around arresting bad germs. So they just go through like that little doo-doo-doo-doo.
Yeah, I do remember I got a pretty bad cold. I think it was before Chicago one year. And I had like Googled how to get rid of a cold really fast. And I was drinking like elderberry concoctions and all sorts of stuff. Okay. Let's get to our next question here. This is from Gabrielle. She said, first of all, thanks for all the work you do with this podcast and BITR as well. Even though I love running for what it is, having people like you in the online space makes me even more passionate about this great sport. Sadly, on my training program to Berlin Marathon this fall, I just got myself a sacral bone stress fracture. I got the MRI results today, and I still need 6 to 8 weeks of pause from running on top of the already 5 weeks that I have off. Now my question to Megan, aka Feathers, which I know she dealt with the same injury, how long did you take off before starting running again? And how long did it take you to, quote, trust that area again? Also, did you add specific stuff to your diet to help with the recovery? Thank you and hope to see you guys somewhere soon. P.S. Berlin 2024 BITR Shakeout was the highlight of the marathon week for me.
Nice.
I love that.
Awesome.
I actually think this would be a great article for the website too. Like this is something like if you outline this, what you had to do to get through this injury, I think a lot of people would be interested, especially people that are like her going through it.
Yeah, we should do that. My PT said the same thing. He's like, you could make a killing selling a program on what to do when you get injured. Everybody would need to buy it. So I'm not interested in making a killing, but I am interested in helping people.
People,
yeah. So I think
maybe we could throw in some vitamin C and zinc in it.
Yeah, maybe. You never know. First of all, this stinks. Like, I'm sorry to hear that he or she is in that situation. And I thought I should pull this out, even though it is a little bit of a personal question for me, because I have had more people reach out just in the last month, either to talk to me one-on-one or in my DMs, that have a similar injury or some sort of stress fracture in their pelvic region, which is all kind of the same conversation here, to be honest. And I just hate it. Like, I hate that so many people are having to go through this and struggle with this. And I don't necessarily have all the answers as to why we're seeing this happening more, but I do know that it's hard and there's not a ton of information readily available of like, what does this recovery look like? So I thought it would be worthwhile to chat through it. So whether it is a pelvic or sacral stress fracture or a different type of injury, I think it all kind of applies. But obviously this conversation is more specific to that type of stress fracture, which is a big one. It really is. They take a little bit longer to heal. That timeline was not laid out for me in the beginning, but not sure I would have wanted to hear it anyways. So, kind of thinking through, he or she is in that specific post-diagnosis spot. So we talked about this a little bit before, but we'll definitely go over it again for anybody who didn't listen to that episode. And it was, what are the things we need to check the box on to see, am I putting myself at an increased risk or for another one of these injuries when I come back, or is there anything going on that would potentially delay my injury recovery here? So one of those would be getting a DEXA scan, which looks at bone density. So for whatever reason, do we have lower bone density than we should at our age, which would make us more susceptible to this? So I think it's very smart to do that. My doctor told me I needed to get 2 stress fractures before I would get one. And I said, absolutely not. I want one now. So I really pushed for it to get it, right? So you may have to fight a little bit to get that DEXA scan, especially if you're under the age of, I think it was like 45 or 50 that insurance usually covers it. But I highly recommend that. Even just 1 stress fracture. Let's make sure our bone density looks good. So that would be first. Then second is get some lab work done. Make sure our vitamin D levels are healthy. By healthy, I mean well over 35, but under 100. Because if our vitamin D is low, we're going to delay bone healing. So we want to make sure that if we need to be supplementing to get those levels higher, we're supporting like the fastest healing of our bone. Then the other piece of bone health is adequate calcium intake. So making sure that we're getting 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams of calcium on a daily basis. You could do just our food recall of like, what do I typically eat in a day, and kind of identify where are my calcium sources. You can reach out to myself or another dietitian to help with that, to see. And if we're not getting enough, we need a supplement. I try to get people to get their calcium through food, but if we can't, then we need a supplement, and that's totally fine. So looking at that. The other thing, there is a higher risk of pelvic or sacral bone stress injuries being related to underfueling. So we want to make sure that we're fueling adequately, again, whether it was intentional or not intentional. Maybe we're missing the mark on our nutrition. So it's always good to take a look at that. Sometimes we find that that's a factor, sometimes we don't, right? But all these things we just want to rule out and make sure that we're addressing it all so that we can heal quickly, we can heal efficiently, and we can come back without getting another injury, knock on wood. So we'll get that lab work done. And then the other 2 pieces too would be taking an assessment of overall stress, because when we look at risk factors for those high stress fractures in our pelvic or sacral region, the biggest pieces of risk, right, are hormones. So maybe it's because we're seeing changes in hormones specifically for females around like perimenopause, right? That could be a risk factor. Nutrition obviously is, like we talked about, certain medications put us at higher risk, and then stress. So when I was getting this diagnosis, my doctor was like, people with way too much stress in their life, whether it's good stress, bad stress, all that stress, I tend to see have this injury more frequently. So that's another thing we need to address, right? Is there underlying stress in our life that is causing us to be at a greater risk? So really being honest with yourself and looking at that, and then 2, reaching out to a mental health counselor to kind of work through how we process stress and all that kind of stuff can be a really important piece of all of this. So those are the things that I would recommend doing now in that time off. And then as far as, I think they wanted to know a little bit more about
how long,
the timeline, right? Yeah. So this is where, again, I think if someone would have told me how long this was going to take up front, I would have been really devastated. So maybe it was good that I learned this along the way. But there's some really great PTs on Instagram, the good old IG, that talk a lot about injuries and recovery. So I found one in particular. The handle is Running Mate KC. And he posted this phenomenal review of a literature of an article on these types of stress fractures from 2013. I've talked to Meg about this a couple times, and it was showing how many weeks it takes to fully heal from these crazy bone injuries that are up high like that. And with a grade 1 to 2, it was 17 weeks. And with a grade 3 to 4, it was 38 weeks, which is
What were you?
Oh, I was 4. I was stage 4. I did it good. So that would have been the end of July for me. It would have been 38 weeks. And that, to be fair, whether it was in my head or not, that's exactly when I started to feel no discomfort anymore. So I'm like, I think there's something to this. So it's long, I guess is what I'm trying to say here, is it's a really long recovery. And we hear a lot about people re-injuring themselves or getting a different stress fracture when they're trying to come back too soon. So I do really just encourage people to be honest with themselves and their bodies and about how they're feeling. Find a good PT. That has been so instrumental, for me, is really finding someone to help me make sense of all this. And what am I feeling and where am I feeling it? And is this a bad thing? Is this an okay thing? Can I run through this? Should I not? When should I back off? And then 2, just understanding maybe what led to this, right? Like a lot of these stress fractures are very mechanical as well, right? Is there something going on with a weakness somewhere or a hip impingement or something that's putting undue stress on different areas? So I can't fix that my hips are a little impinged, but I can make them strong as heck around there so that hopefully I don't put stress other places, right? So having somebody help you identify those things. And then also it feels so good in the off time to have something to work towards. I'm like working towards getting the strongest glute meads I possibly can, right? So, it's helpful to have somebody on your side to identify some of the things that maybe led to this injury so that you can help fix it in the time that you're not allowed to do what you love, which is running. So all that to say, I hope this human finds the support they need.
Any tips on not losing your mind during this process?
No, honestly, every day's a new day. Like there were days where I was just pissed, and then there were days when I was sad, right? But then the next day, I would feel totally different. So it's like not getting stuck in that emotion and just understanding that there's like a whole wave of feelings that are going to come with navigating this. And 2, I think so many of us use running as a stress reliever. So 2, it's finding like, what can that be for us in this downtime? Because if stress was a piece of getting this injury, right, and now we can't do what we used to do to relieve that stress, it can just be really important to find what that is for you, which for me, I was still able to swim. I hate swimming and I haven't done it since I've gotten better, but it was clutch for me at the time to still be able to move my body.
On a personal side for us, and I think I can speak for all of us, we have so many opportunities that are wrapped around running.
Yeah.
And things that we're doing that involve running, whether it's partnerships with brands, going to events, the fact that I know that, even if I'm injured, Meg's going to still be running, a race that I can go and I can support and this and that. But there is such a feeling when you have to step back and not participate, like your value is in question. Like you feel like, okay, it's great. I can go help support and be a cheerleader or whatever at that time. But you almost feel, and I don't know if you guys feel this, Meg, but you almost feel like, what am I doing here?
And that's why my injury got so bad, was because I was ignoring pain because I wanted to go run New York City with Meg. I had one more thing I wanted to accomplish for the year. So I just kept running through it, yes, I totally relate to that. But then on the flip side of being out and not being able to do those things, and maybe I'm just lucky because I work with so many wonderful runners and we have this podcast, but I still felt like I was totally a part of this, even though I couldn't do it. I didn't love that I couldn't run, but I don't know. I still felt like very much a part of this community and very much a runner still. And I don't know if that's just maturity and that I'm old now and maybe 10 years ago this would have crushed me. Who knows, right? But I do. I think I still felt very much ingrained in everything. Plus, it was the winter, so we weren't doing as much either.
I was going to say, it was good timing.
Yeah,
there
lovely
ever
timing.
Is good timing.
But I also feel like maybe it's the squeezing out of all the extra moisture in us that helps. But as soon as I miss 3 or 4 days, I start feeling that doughiness.
Aw.
And that's where the depression is really starts.
And I think that's a good point though, because our bodies are going to change, right? If we can't run, 40, 50, 60 miles a week, like our bodies are going to change. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Trying to maintain our exact same body through an injury is probably not a great idea, So that's another good point just to put out there, right? Like our bodies are going to change in our lifetime. They're going to change when things happen, including an injury. And maybe that's for the better though, right? Like maybe it's getting stronger. One of my doctors looked at me and was like, you need more muscle. And I'm like, okay, well, tell my genetics that. I don't know, So
well, that's where you throw in biking and weightlifting and the other things
right.
that are non-impact
right.
that you can do. And for me, that was when I've had to go through an injury cycle. The staying active, it's almost like I'm more active. Like, okay, I'm going to ride my bike for longer. I'm going to go, lift weights on an even more regular basis. It's like you go overboard the other direction, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then the two more pieces to that, and I think you kind of answered this, but how long did it take you to like trust that area, or do you even still trust that area today?
So this is a good question and something I worried about in the beginning, but then it hasn't actually been quite as hard as I'd expected. So yeah, it's like, how do you trust the feeling? Is that feeling a good feeling? Is it a bad feeling? And one of the things that helped me a lot was I talked to Emily Saul a few times in the very beginning, and she told me those feelings are feedback. Don't look at them as good or bad. They're feedback that your body's trying to tell you something, so make sure you listen, which was what got me in this trouble, was not listening, right? So just understanding that and taking a more neutral approach to what you're feeling, that it's just feedback. It's just information, right? And then the other thing was my doctor had recommended just running every other day. And Emily was able to kind of conceptualize that for me. And like, that means your body has 48 hours to build back stronger from what you just did, right? You're giving your body the time and the space and the grace. So even if you feel a little something, you stop and you're giving your body that 48 hours to build back up, because bone heals with some stressor, right? So it's like if we do nothing, we're looking at the research, if we do absolutely nothing to move our body and put, a little stress on that bone once we're able to, it's not going to heal as fast. So we, knowing scientifically that like stressing that area a little bit is actually a good thing, but then we need to give it the time to rest, recover, and rebuild. So, her helping with that conceptualization. So if I did feel something on a Monday, but I wasn't going to, do impact again till a Wednesday, it was just repeating that in my head, right? Like, this is just rebuilding, it's regrowing. It's, this is information that my body is giving me. So I guess along those lines and the whole trust aspect, I also totally pulled out of any expectations of racing or paces or anything until my body felt okay, right? Like, I think former Megan would have put a race on the calendar and made sure she did that, right? And like that, you just can't do that right now. We have to listen to our body, respond appropriately, give it the time it needs. And in that, I think I built a newfound trust with my body, as corny as that sounds, right? Of like, if you listen, wow, everything's okay, versus, arbitrarily pushing towards a goal without listening to our body.
And then the final piece of that, did you change anything in your diet specifically to try and like quicken the pace of healing?
So
steroids.
Yeah, I started supplementing vitamin D. Mine was like 33, I think, right? So it like wasn't in a risk zone, but it certainly could have been better. So I started supplementing vitamin D. I did totally do like a nutrition analysis to A, make sure I was eating enough, and then B, enough calcium. So for probably a month, I was kind of tracking calcium and protein and just some things that I felt like I needed to put a little more attention to make sure I was getting enough, which for everybody might be a little bit different. So, but for the most part, nutrition stayed pretty similar. I was just really diligent to make sure, like, when I wasn't moving my body as much, if my appetite wasn't as great, that I was still being conscious of solid meals and getting enough protein, which I suck at, and all that kind of stuff. So I do think that helped a lot. But other than that, there wasn't anything too crazy. Like, I talked to a couple doctors that, shockwave therapy and all these types of things. And a couple people I really trust in the field were like, yeah, it'll speed up healing, but the integrity of healing isn't great. So I didn't even do anything crazy. I was just like, I am willing to give this the time it needs to heal once and for all and move forward. So I didn't do some of the other type of therapies that supposedly speed bone healing, just because I'd heard it doesn't always speed the actual integrity of that healing. So I was like, I don't want to mess with that. So, yeah.
All right. One question before we leave this topic.
Yeah.
You talked about mental stress being part of the equation here. What did you do to maybe address that for yourself?
Super honest with myself about where the stress was coming from and the things that I could control. I made sure to change and to control. As I mentioned earlier, sleep is huge for me. Sleep like literally heals everything, my mind, my body, everything. So I really prioritize getting more sleep, which I could do if I wasn't getting up at 4 a.m. to run every morning. So sleep in turn really helped with that stress piece for me. And then, I mean, to be fair, there's still a lot of life stressors that are out of my control that I have not completely figured out, and I don't know if I ever will. But I think I focused on the things that are in my control from a stress perspective, and I'm trying to be a little more respectful to my body about that. I'm a hard charger. I'll just put my head down and do what I want to do versus listening to what my body might need. So I'm just trying really hard to do better at that.
Okay.
All right. Our next question, exciting, is an audio submission from
Yay.
Alex. So let's take a listen here.
Hey Feathers, Thomas and Megan, this is Alex from Louisiana. Hope y'all doing okay. I had a question on some fueling regarding my upcoming marathon. I'm planning on running the Austin Marathon in February here in Texas. And I'm hoping for sub 4 hours. It will be my first marathon, but for context, I'm 6 foot tall, 215 pounds, and currently have a PR of 156 in the half marathon. I was curious about the importance of protein along with your carbs for your morning pre-race fueling. I've read recently where it shows where protein is important for slowing the release of carbs throughout the course of your event or your run, sustaining your energy for longer periods of time. The runs I've been doing, training runs, long runs, etc., consistently feeling like I've only got about 30 to 45 minutes of good energy before my energy levels just rapidly decline. And some of my runs I've fueled up to around 90 grams an hour of carbs with little to no GI distress. The intensity is a little higher on the end, on my end, for such a long duration, but with consistent fueling, I'm not understanding why there's such a sheer drop in energy levels. Just try to figure out any kind of advice you have as far as that may go. Love listening to the podcast. Really enjoy you guys' content and appreciate everything you guys do. Keep it coming.
Okay.
All right, Alex.
So it sounds like he's fueling well. I mean, 90 carbs an hour is pretty good.
Yeah. And he said he was 215 pounds, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. That's what I thought he said. So when we're thinking about that, we had a whole podcast about like, how do we fuel if we're over 200 pounds as a runner, right? Because I mean, it is different. Our body is burning more energy out there. So I think that's a big factor of Alex's questions here. So one of my first things would be, is he eating enough before he starts running? So typical recommendations for like a long run or a race is to eat 1 to 3 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram of body weight. So for him, that works out to like 100 to 300 grams of carbs before he's running. So I'm wondering if maybe he's starting off the run without adequate carbs and then feeling that low energy. What he said he only has energy for like 30 to 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And then he starts fueling with 90 grams of carbs an hour. So to me,
you're saying he's starting a deficit.
Yeah, I think he is. That would be my first recommendation, is to try to eat a little more beforehand. And if 100 to 300 grams of carbs feels daunting beforehand, maybe drink some of it, like a higher carb drink mix or something, if that feels hard. So I would try that first and foremost. And then I think he mentioned if he adds protein in there, is that helpful? So yes, we can certainly add some protein in there, which can be helpful for us. But I want him to remember too that like a bagel, right, with 50 grams of carbs has like 10 grams of protein. So he's probably getting more protein if he scales those carbs up than he realizes. But he could, some people do feel better when they add some Greek yogurt or an egg or something like that to their pre-run. I wouldn't recommend getting like a full meal's worth of protein for him beforehand. But that would be something too that he could play with a little bit more. And then continuing to fuel 90 grams an hour might be what he needs, right? To fuel his body while he's out there longer.
I mean,
so
if it's not causing a problem,
yeah,
why not?
Let's do it. Right. So he could keep up with that. And then 2, he said something about intensity. And I'm like, maybe our intensity is just way too high because we're burning, way more carbs the higher our intensity is. So maybe he needs to slow down just a little bit. I don't know. And then 2, hydration. Like, is it possible that his energy levels are waxing and waning from hydration? So just kind of some different things for him to play with.
All right, so let's give him a simple plan for a pre-long run race. Like, wakes up.
Well, first of all, I think it actually needs to start the night before, and maybe he needs to make sure that he's having a high carb meal. Maybe he's hyper hydrating.
Let's give him a plan for his next long run. Go ahead.
All right, Alex, we're gonna eat 3 cups of cooked pasta. You can put anything with it you want: protein, sauce, veggies, whatever you want. But 3 cups of actual cooked pasta plus perhaps an element, something high in sodium, 1,000 milligrams. Drink that with like 24 to 30 ounces of water with dinner so that we're stocking our glycogen stores, hanging on to extra fluid, sodium. Wake up in the morning and let's eat more. So that could be like a large bagel with a banana and a glass of juice. You could put an egg or something on there if he wants to try to add more protein to it. And then head out the door and then start fueling every 30. So fuel early, and then also carry some hydration with him as well. So see if those 3 things, night before, morning of, fueling early and often, taking some more hydration, does the trick.
All right, Alex, you got to report back. You give that a shot. And I want to hear another voice message back on how that run went. And I would love it if it doesn't work, I still want to hear from you. If it does work, we definitely want to hear from you.
All right, let's answer one last question here. This is from Annie from PA. She said, love your show and all 3 of your unique perspectives. I have learned so much from you all. I have a question regarding GI upset. I recently ran my first backyard ultra and had terrible GI upset. Was going to the porta potty almost every loop. I started out with my normal bowl of oats with banana, PB 1.5 hours before the race. But after 2 loops, my stomach started acting up. Temps were pleasant in the 60s, and I've never had any GI upset in any of my training or previous races. The biggest difference was that I hydrated with a more concentrated mix of 16 ounces of scratch each loop and 8 more real food, muffins, crackers, etc., whereas I'm used to training with less concentrated scratch and more gels. Could the higher concentrated scratch and or more food in my belly be the reason? When my crew prepared the scratch for the Backyard Ultra, 8 scoops were mixed per 1 gallon of water. I was able to keep fueling and hydrating throughout the race, but my stomach didn't like it. I tried sipping ginger ale, eating only bland foods like bagels, crackers, taking gels. What are gin-gins? Gin-gins, etc.
Like ginger chips.
Oh. An ice bandana on my neck and alternating water and scratch kind of helped. But once my stomach started to go south, I never really got a handle on it for the next 16 hours. Thanks for any tips. I have a 40-mile trail race September 13th and do not want to repeat this scenario.
Do you know what Annie didn't tell us?
What?
She had a large chalupa the night before.
Hey, that's actually, I wasn't going to talk about that. You're right. What'd you eat the night before? Did that cause some issues? Yeah, you're not wrong. I appreciate that. Definitely. So I think the moral here, and this is a great example why we don't do anything on race day we haven't practiced in training. So there was a lot of variables that were different for her on race day that she didn't practice in training. And we talk about that a lot around here, of the importance of making sure.
I'm sorry. It's so hard when you're doing an ultra. Like, I'm not going to, I know that I've got the JFK 50 miler coming up. I know I'm going to eat stuff on that I can't possibly train for. Like, I'll eat salted potatoes and, potato chips and stuff like that. Should I be?
But I think you can train with some of those things. You can train with real food.
All right, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Right. I interrupted.
Yeah, no, you're fine. I had a client recently that did the run for MS. So she ran all the way across, I think it was Wisconsin, 4 days, 140 miles or something. So I had her practicing with little bags of Sun Chips and little things of Pringles and things that I knew she was going to eat while she was out there. So, and like half a turkey sandwich and, things that were like real food. So I would recommend, if we're planning on using those things, we need to practice, we need to try, because not only then do we realize, okay, this worked versus this didn't work, or this was hard to open, or I actually didn't have enough saliva to chew this type of pretzel, or, things like that are very, very helpful. We also realize, like, does something not sit well in our stomach? So, I think it's important to practice those types of things. And then 2, when we have that real food in our stomach, it actually is training our body to figure out how to more efficiently digest this when we have less blood flow to our GI tract, because it's going to our working muscles and to cool our bodies off. So we can train that. So, I would recommend that Annie starts using some of the things that she thinks she's going to use out there. And or for a 40-mile trail race, she could stick to what she knows works, like her diluted scratch and gels, and not lean on real food as much. That would be another option, depending on, if she has enough time to train.
That's the whole fun of the ultras, though, is like getting the snacks.
I don't know that this sounded fun to be having these issues.
This particular time, it didn't work out. I remember I made a big mistake on Hat 50K one time. You remember the Justin's peanut butter? It came in like little pouch? Packs that looked like gel packs. And I was like, oh, this would be great for my ultra. I can just have peanut butter and, that'd be great. Now, it probably would have worked out if I just sipped on it out of, like, kind of pulled a little bit at a time. But I tried to do it like a gel, where I tried to, like, squeeze the whole thing in my mouth. And when I went to swallow, what it did is create a plug in my air hole. And I was, like, choking on the side of the trail trying to get the peanut butter out. But it was a peanut butter plug.
Air hole. Your trachea.
Whatever. I couldn't breathe through my nose or my mouth because it was filled with peanut butter.
That's like when in 3rd grade, my science teacher taught me it was called the food tube, and my dad freaked out when I came home. He's like, it's an esophagus, Megan. It is not a food tube.
Well, technically, it's both.
Anyways, the other thing I wanted to mention, too, was I don't think the scratch was actually over-concentrated, because when I first read this, that was my instinct. I was like, oh, the carbs were concentrated too much, because if we don't mix a carbohydrate beverage that we're going to run with to the directions on the pouch, like if we undermix it, the concentration of carbs in that liquid is too high. So when it hits our stomach doesn't like that it's so concentrated. So it has to pull fluid in to try to dilute it to the osmolality that our stomach likes, which can cause GI upset. So I was thinking for sure that's what was going on here. But
is that why there's directions on the pack?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, something like Element or Liquid IV that is either no sugar or low sugar, you can mix that however you want, right? But it's just the carbohydrate containing beverages that it's important to try to stick closely to what they say. You can always under concentrate them, just not over concentrate them. But I did the math, and a gallon is 128 ounces. So I divided that by 8 scoops of scratch, and that's 16 ounces per serving of scratch.
She didn't tell you what she could have been using a giant scooper, though. It could have been like a shovel. You don't know.
Isn't there there's an actual scoop in the scratch, though.
There is, but we don't know. And we're assuming they're using that. And we're also assuming that her crew only used 8 for that gallon.
So what I'm hearing is Thomas thinks there's a conspiracy theory here, Annie, and that
he doesn't
your crew
trust anyone.
Purposely.
Annie, you got to prepare your own food and prepare your own drinks. There's somebody on that crew who's like, yeah, you're going to enjoy this 8 hours.
So Annie, yes, let's make sure that we're practicing what we want to do on race day. I think that's a piece of it. And then even though the scratch was mixed appropriately, we think, maybe you do better with it slightly more diluted. Like I like my scratch a little more diluted too. So, maybe we just need to be a little more careful about that, because it's possible that was a little bit of an issue too.
All right. I think that does it for us this week.
Peas and carrots.
As always, thank you all for listening. And if you have a question that we haven't answered, you can send us an email at fuelforthesoulpodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear your voice, like Alex today. So you can also send us a audio message. Just record it however you like on your phone is fine. And send it to that email address as well.
Now?
Now you can do it.
Peas and carrots.
Bye.
She's not that bad.
Thomas!
Yeah, okay. What are we doing this
We're
thing?
recording.
Oh. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
There are drugs involved.
I want to wake up at the end of the 18, though, I think. We didn't have any baby goats around, though, for her to sacrifice.
What?
I hate to break it to her. She's not getting a Labubu from Japan.
Why?